Back with you on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta, as we'll continue to talk about the Atlanta Falcons and this fascination that they have with the Chicago Bears organization. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about our friends over at Bet Online. Now, we've been talking about these folks over the last few shows. Look, the Masters is today, right? Everybody knows. We got Braves opening day. I mean, think about what today is in the state of Georgia. We got Braves opening day today. Hawks won last night. Okay, we got the Masters starting up. Got all kinds of things that you can start looking at betting on. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports scores, all kinds of stuff. You can go head over to the website. It's betonline.com. Check out all the different things that they've got. They've got the Vegas casino games. They got all this kind of stuff. Hey, you feel good about somebody at the Masters? Put a few bucks down. You think Tiger's going to win it? Put a few bucks down. You think the Braves are going to win today? Put a few bucks down. Right? You got all kinds of things you can bet on. It's a great time to be, a sports fan here in the Atlanta and the Georgia area. So go to betonline.com right now. Check it out. Bet online where the games start. All right, as we continue here on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery, this fascination with the Chicago Bears and all the coaches and players and this and that. Hell, we'll go get their hot dog guy and their nacho guy and all. And by the way, it's not as though that the Bears couldn't have signed something. The Bears right now are sitting with $15.5 million of cap space. Let me repeat that. $15.5 million of cap space. So if they wanted any or all of these guys back, all the guys that helped get their general manager fired, if they wanted these guys back, why haven't they? Do you know why Steven Means and Fabian Moreau aren't signed in the NFL? Because they stink. Because they're no good and they're with a loser organization and weren't any good with them. And now we're going down the same road with they're just one-year deals. I don't care. I want the Falcons to get better. I want them to identify players that are part of the solution, not continuing the problem. Just because you don't expect to win, or this year's a waste, or this year's a throw in the trash can, even though your head coach and your general manager aren't going to tell you that. Well, they're tanking. Okay, here's what I want you to do if they're tanking. I want you to go up to Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot, and I want you to tell them that you want them to tank. I want you to go tell them that. I want you get them on your radio station and interview them and saying, Coach, are we going to tank this year? Ask him that question and see what kind of answer that you get from him. Think he's going to be real open and receptive to that? So because we wasted last year, and that's basically what it was a waste. Now that we know how the whole Matt Ryan situation, it was a waste. Hell, we could have moved on, traded, we could have done 25 different things, but they picked the worst thing possible to where they got to eat all this money this year, blah, 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 blah. And now this is where we're at. Well, they've got to draft really well, Chuckery. Cool. What about last year's draft? What about the guys they drafted last year? What about their middle round picks of Jalen Mayfield, Drew Dolman, Darren Hall, and Taquan Graham? Well, Chuckery, those guys are going to be better this year. Cool. So you mean Jalen Mayfield won't be the worst interior offensive lineman in the NFL this year? Whew, man. Boy, I feel better. Gee, thanks. So my third round pick won't be the biggest disaster in the NFL this year. Whew, man, I feel a lot better. You mean my second round pick in Richie Grant might actually play more than 23.5% of the snaps on defense this year. Whew, man, that's great news. Hey, let's celebrate and throw up banners. Hell, you better get something out of him when your picking is high and you trade up in the second round to go get a guy. You better get more out of them, and you better get a crap ton out of this. And by the way, we're not talking about just drafting starters. Well, we got to get 4 stars. No, let me tell you what you got to start getting. You have to start getting Tristan Wirfs and Micah Parsons. What are they? Second year, first year guys, first team all NFL. Let me repeat that slower. First team all NFL. That's the caliber of guys you have to start drafting if you want to turn this thing around sooner rather than later. Not, well, just give us a few years with our picks and everything will be fine. I mean, again, there's a way to go about building this. There's a way to go and get your roster fixed. Go find me guys around the league. I wanted Derek Barnett, for instance. Okay. Could we, he re-upped, I think it was with the Eagles. I want guys that, for whatever reason, have gotten squeezed. Not, hey, here's all the guys that aren't getting signed from another bad organization. That's what this is. Well, they're just cheap guys and they're just roster fill. I don't want just roster fill outs. That I can take Steven Means and Fabian Moreau if I want that. If I just want guys to fill out my roster, I can bring in Fabian Moreau and Steven Means and guys like that. I can bring those guys in. I can bring them all back. He brought back Isaiah Oliver for $1.25 million. Another one of the great second-round picks of the Falcons. Well, they're some vet minimum. I don't care what they are. They're not coming from a good organization. You're loading up with a bunch of guys who just got the general manager fired. Because when you can't identify talent, you can't, it's not just a matter of identifying talent at the 4th pick, the 3rd pick, the 8th pick, the 7th pick. It's about evaluating talent in the 2nd, in the 3rd, in the 4th round, finding guys like that. You need to find guys like Grady Jarrett in the 5th round that way outplay their rookie contract, and they deserve a big second contract. Not, hey, I'm a 1st-round pick, and I've gone on 3 franchises in 6 years. I'm just looking for a home. I'm looking for love in all the wrong places. Come on. This is not that confusing, is it? I'm not excited about 14 former Bears as part of this. Hell, we should have just hired Ryan Pace then. Hell, if this is all we were going to do, what the hell do I need Terry Fontenot for? Hell, I'm just going to elevate Ryan Pace to be my general manager, and we'll just go load up with all his guys. And then we'll flounder around, and people will be like, well, I don't understand. We brought in all these camp bodies. We brought in all these guys to, compete. I mean, I'm hearing like Effetti's going to compete with Caleb McGarry. Cool. That's like being the nicest guy on death row. That's what that is. I don't really have an answer. This is the difference. You want an answer? Okay. So we got Caleb McGarry, who can't play right tackle in the NFL, and they bring in Effetti. Well, we're going to compete. How about this? Last year, if we'd have drafted Penei Sewell with the 4th overall pick, I'd have put him at right tackle. He was one of the best offensive linemen, especially for a rookie in the NFL. Play him at right tackle, Jake at left, okay? And in a couple of years, I swapped them, and I've got Lindstrom, and I've got my answer at left tackle long-term, and I've got a place for Jake to play, and I've got a good guy that can grow and develop at right tackle. Now I have an answer, not just, well, let's compete, and we'll bring a guy in and compete with Caleb McGarry. No, the difference between answering the question and putting a Band-Aid over it, because that's what Effetti is. He's no long-term answer. Well, we'll just go draft a guy. Where? The 8th round? Is that where we're going to go draft him? You didn't want to draft him last year when they were sitting right there to start fixing some of the things. I don't care if this is a throwaway year. It shouldn't be a throwaway year on developing talent, on bringing in guys that look like they're part of the solution, on bringing in guys that can help turn the thing around in a positive direction. You still have to do that through the draft. But again, why are we going with a worse organization than what we are to go load up our coaching staff, roster, front office, everything else? I thought we were new and creative in all this. Hell, we could have kept Dan and Thomas if this was what we're going to do. All right, when we get back, has Adam Silver lost his mind? I think he has. It'll be sort of a what's bugging Chuckery. Coming up next is Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.